What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and one of the last few comedians or Hollywood personas out there that doesn't really bend the knee very often to cancel culture lies in the world of comedians. It's where the early bubblings of pushback against cancel culture have begun and continue to gain steam as people like Bill Burr just have zero F's to give anymore. And over the weekend, he absolutely torched CNN as treasonous, un-American pieces of garbage and called Joe Biden a effing bore. I can't believe people watch that channel. They're so dumb, was his quote. But this isn't the first time Bill Burr has come to the defense or has, stood in solidarity against a lot of this kind of woke culture. It started back in late October, where comedian Bill Burr cheered and blasted for his joke about white women and woke culture on Saturday Night Live. Remember, Bill Burr saw the backlash coming early in his opening monologue on Saturday Night Live. In retrospect, it really wasn't that hard to be prophetic, considering his material touched on everything from masks to gay pride and race. He even made a crack about grandparents dying from the coof. There are too many people, he said. It's a dream come true. Viewers, of course, could have picked any number of Burr's jokes to be offended by, but the comedian's take on white women hijacking woke culture is what made Bill Burr trending sensation on Twitter. Somehow, white women swung their Gucci-booted feet over the fence of oppression and stuck themselves at the front of the line, he said, adding that he's never heard so much complaining in his life from white women. I mean, he's not wrong. Unsurprisingly, it did not take long for the internet's outrage machine to fully get going, but there was also plenty of love to counter the hate. Jen Cheney, there is no real time for that Bill Burr monologue, but I'll tell you what, now is not it. Me watching white women on Twitter played directly into Bill Burr's hands. Of course, made it about 1 minute into Bill Burr's SNL monologue before I had to change the channel. In this cultural moment, SNL really thought the best choice for a host was a white male stand-up ranting about cancel culture. I mean, Bill Burr was correct. And that's not the only time. Back in March, early March, Mandalorian star Bill Burr defends Gina Carano in the wake of her controversial statements. She was an absolute sweetheart. I remember covering this in a podcast he had where he said stand-up comedian Bill Burr is not a fan of cancel culture, and he's made that known before, but most recently during SNL Live monologue during October. In a recent episode of the Bill Burt podcast with Burt Krishner, the subject of Bill Burr's Mandalorian co-star Gina Carano was brought up, and how she was fired by Disney over her social media statements. On Disney Plus series, Burr plays Miggs Mayfield, a rogue bounty hunter. She was an absolute sweetheart. Super nice effing person. And whatever, somehow someone will take this video and make me say something and try to get rid of my bald action figure, the Massachusetts natives defended, referring to how Hasbro also canceled Gina Carano's Cara Dune action figure. The toy maker hasn't made any Mayfield figures yet. I'm on that effing show. Now I gotta go watch what the F I say, he said. How it's out there, it's crazy time. There's people waiting, just laying in the weeds. But Bill Burr expounded on the social media cancel culture. Let's show that he's human and then he made a mistake in his past and take his dream away. Burr continued, how do you hold up you're judging somebody that harshly? I'm not talking about the hardcore stuff, like very bad behavior. I'm talking about now it's becoming like, hey, you made an ignorant comparison. That's like a clear reference to Gina. There goes your dream. I look at that and I say, who the F stands up to that? Added Joe DeRosa. I get what she was trying to say. Obviously, any comparison with that event is a shoddy comparison, but it's a dumb thing to do. I'm not disagreeing with any of that. However, how is this any different from all the people on the left when Trump got elected and they said, he's like the bad guy from WW2? How's that any different? Burr's SNL monologue was controversial, stirring up quite a reaction on social media as he took jabs at those who don't wear masks, Pride Month, and woke culture. It's certainly not certain whether Burr will be returning to season 3. I'm sure he will. People just love him. And of course, he had Grammy problems too. He says something about feminists are like going nuts. Was I the only one that wanted to end myself during that piano solo? I can't say this name, and the Grammy goes to Natalia Lafourcade, Bill Burr Academy Awards presenter. He finds them funny, apparently. Read again, funny. Read one comment. I mean, Bill Burr, keeping kind of politically incorrect culture alive as he, mocks feminists and does all sorts of stuff like that. But over the weekend, Bill Burr savages CNN as un-American pieces of garbage who want Trump for ratings. I mean, is there any of that statement that you would think is untrue? Bill Burr savaged CNN anchors this weekend as moronic, America-hating blowhards who secretly covet a second Trump presidency because he's good for ratings. I swear to God, I cannot believe people watch that channel. They're so dumb, blared the bombastic comedian and Mandalorian star in his blistering foul-mouthed rant on his podcast. They're treasonous, un-American pieces of garbage, Burr, 53, said of the news. I don't disagree with that. I mean, treasonous, that may be a stretch. But un-American, American hating, these are things that I think you could probably make a case for. You could probably, argue that people like Brian Stelter aren't big fans of this country, aren't big fans of America or Americans. The comedian said he's triggered by his mother-in-law who comes over to babysit his children. She always puts on CNN. And do you know what those effing morons are doing? Do you know what they're doing all day? They're talking about Trump. Burr seethed with increasing exasperation. He indicated that the network is obsessed with the former president because he's good for business, while bore President Biden is a ratings disaster. It's like, do you think people give an F who's president? They want Darth Vader to come back. They want him to come back. Or do you think they do? They want him to come back because they had nothing to talk about, because it's show business and Biden is boring. They can't complain about Biden because he's wearing a blue tie, a Democrat, in other words. So, what's interesting there is Burr is obviously calling out the partisan hackery of a news network. Now, again, every time I talk about this kind of stuff, obviously, I'm sure Fox News, I don't really watch cable news that often. Fox News has its own biases as well. So what do they do now? They're going out there. They're going to do the same thing the first time to get the guy Trump elected by giving him all the free coverage while they act like they allegedly don't like him. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. They are a corporate news channel. Burr is a second star of The Mandalorian to fuel social media firestorm over his outspoken views. Obviously, we know Gina Carano, but he also defended her. CNN has hemorrhaged viewers since Trump left office, with second quarter primetime viewership down 68% to year, the most of any cable news network, according to Nielsen data. I mean, ultimately, if you look at the Twitter sphere, people seem to be enjoying it. Here's even Palmer Report, a far left-leaning Twitter account. Comedian Bill Burr is right. The media is doing real harm by pretending Donald Trump is still some dominant force who's about to leap out at us from behind every dark corner. The only legitimate reason to still cover him is to document his worsening legal troubles and downfall. Daily Caller posting this. Comedian Bill Burr savaged CNN recently as un-American. He's not wrong. Yeah. I mean, I just don't think that there's anything incorrect in that statement. And, if I can just take a brief aside here, I really do want better news for Americans. I don't want partisan hackery from somebody who's supposed to be, giving me the news. It'd be really nice to turn on something, I call news, and be informed rather than to consume either confirmation bias in content, or content that is clearly one-sided. It's like that. To me, it's a meme that people have to go watch like Al Jazeera or the BBC to get relatively trustworthy news about what's going on in America. It's sick to me that we have these huge news networks and they're all relatively untrustworthy. Now, the numbers show Fox News continues to dominate, but maybe that just means their viewers are more dedicated. There's no doubt in my mind that Fox has bias. We just had that weather lady come out and say that she wasn't allowed to talk about certain things, and she was working for a Fox affiliate. So it's absolutely not just CNN, for example. I really appreciate and cherish Bill Burr. He's probably not long for Hollywood as he, continues to kind of put things how they are. But without guys like Bill Burr, who stand up against this, we're never going to defeat it. We need more people like Bill Burr, not less. I understand that, it's easy to call somebody out over a mistake and roast them for it, and I think that that's fine. But the idea that they need to be fired and have their life, completely turned upside down because of it is not something I subscribe to. And more people need to get behind people like Bill who, and defend them when they eventually come for him, and they will. Hope to see him on The Mandalorian Season 3, but we'll have to wait and see. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.